嗨，大家好，我是戴淑萱，我来自英国，欢迎回到我的频道。很多我的观众都对英国幽默感到好奇，因为他们在日常生活中或跟英国人聊天时，常常遇到听不懂的笑话。英式幽默通常很干而且直接。今天我要跟大家分享一些生活里真实的例子，让大家更好的了解英式幽默到底为什么会好笑。首先，我想跟你们分享我自己生活里的2个故事。第一件事是我朋友结婚的时候，他在寄出的婚礼喜帖信里写道 ：If you have any special dietary requirements, please let us know so we can tell you where the nearest shop is to pick something up on your way. 如果有任何特殊饮食需求，请务必告知我们，我们会告诉你最近的商店在哪里，方便你在路上买点东西。这听起来可能有一点夸张，因为我们通常会说我们会尽力满足你的饮食需求。这个例子就是英式干式幽默很好的代表。为什么呢？一部分的原因是因为它挑战了社交礼仪。为什么挑战社交礼仪会好笑呢？可能是因为英国也算是一个很重视潜规则的文化，现在还是有蛮多那种大家都懂但是没人明讲的规定，所以幽默感挑战了这些社交的礼仪，就会让大家觉得意外又好笑。讲到饮食需求这一块，我再多讲解一下。你知道吗？在英国南部，越来越多人有特殊饮食习惯，比如不吃麸质、不吃乳制品或是素食主义者，这让班排队的人很头痛，因为也要准备很多不同的食物。大家都知道这很麻烦，有一点尴尬。我朋友直接跟宾客说：“你自己买点吃的就好。”这有点好笑，因为这不是我们平常会说的话，这违反了社交礼仪，而且直接说出大家都心照不宣却又违反了礼仪的话，在英国人眼中就变成了幽默。一些人可能会想，他怎么可以用电子邮件这样写？宾客会生气的。但因为我了解我朋友的幽默感，所以我知道这是一个笑话，而且他应该还是会准备很多东西，确保参加婚礼的人有足够的东西吃。他可能也清楚他写信的对象，他亲近的朋友和家人都会理解这只是一个笑话。我把这一封信里面的内容告诉我爸，他笑到喷饭。我爸的幽默感也跟我的朋友的幽默感很像。那现在我来讲我爸讲冷笑话的故事。我阿妈告别式的时候，我爸在葬礼致辞中说 My mother was always to be found at village gatherings, whether she was invited or not. 我妈总是会出现在村里的活动上，就算她没被邀请。这句话逗得大家哈哈笑。当然也因为他是我阿妈的儿子，所以他才可以开这种笑话。虽然他说的是我阿妈的习惯，可能不是什么好习惯，但是大家都知道他这么一讲，反而让大家有一种认识的感觉和共同的回忆。其他人绝对不可能对他开这种笑话，因为这样真的很失礼。但是因为是他的儿子，大家反而觉得有趣，甚至有一点温馨，因为这句话揭露了一点阿妈为人处事的方式。好啦，以上就是我分享的2个故事。接下来你们有没有看过英国的贺卡店？这些店卖各种的祝贺卡片，像是生日、结婚、生小孩等等。虽然现在有网络，但是大家还是觉得送实体卡片比较有新意，所以很多人还是会买卡片送人。我将要拿一些我在贺卡店里找到的卡片来分析，看看里面的幽默到底是怎么回事，希望让你们更了解英国人那种直接坦率的幽默风格。留言区也可以分享你们的想法。喜欢这个影片的话，也别忘了订阅频道，学习更多有关英国的文化和英式英文。接下来我会用英文解说，大家准备好听力咯？那我们现在就开始吧。Okay, so here's the first card. It says, I'm getting a gooseberry bouquet with a hint of oak and a fruity finish. And the other person says, I'm getting faced. So the first person is talking about ordering wine. It sounds very fancy, over the top and posh with a lot of flowery words. And the other person uses the same sentence structure. I'm getting sounds like I'm ordering something, but then they say I'm getting faced. And this phrase is slang, meaning I'm going to get extremely drunk. Now we can actually see here the juxtaposition, that means contrast, between the two social classes. Now when most Brits look at this card, they won't be thinking of the social classes, but the joke is related to this kind of clash of cultures, because the first person is maybe overdoing it with some pretentious language, and it's all about social etiquette and class and being very civil and being very well-to-do, well-educated and cultured and all of these things. And then the second person is just outright saying some slang that you'd say on the street with your mates. And it does sound more working class, I suppose. I'm getting absolutely faced. Oh yeah, tonight mate, I'm getting faced. So it's that clash between high-class civilized society and your everyday Joe who just goes down the pub and gets pissed with his mates. And most people walking into this shop and seeing this card will think, haha, that's funny. Me and my friends are more like the second kind. So again, it's about coming out and saying something that seems against the social norms or the etiquette that we've been taught is very important in British society. I'm going to try and get through quite a lot of examples today. It's difficult for me to know into how much detail I should go with the explanations here. It would be really helpful if you could leave a comment with like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the cards that we do today and say 明白 or 不明白. So let me know which jokes you kind of understand, you kind of get the idea, and which jokes you just have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about. So here's the second card I found in the shop. It says, you're the man, the old man, but still the man. So the phrase you're the man means you're really cool, you're killing it. It's basically like 你很厉害, you're the man, 你很厉害. But then it says the old man, 老先生. And this is funny because it's directly saying you're old, which is not something we should normally say in polite conversation. You don't say to someone on their birthday, wow, you're so old, right? It's kind of rude. So to write this on the card is a little bit shocking, and that's why it's funny. Again, it's about going against the expected social norms. You'll find a lot of cards with this kind of theme. Here's the next one. It says, you still look 21 from a distance. Okay, so probably this is a card you'll give to someone who's a bit older. You're saying, don't worry, you still look young. You look about 21. If I can barely see you, like if you're in the distance or if I squint. So yeah, I kind of like that one. It's quite funny. The fourth dry joke. This card confirms that you have at least one friend. So it's making the joke that the person has no friends. Again, seems kind of mean, but probably these are close friends and they already have that level of acceptance of each other. So making these little jokes is almost a way of showing the closeness between you two, that you know you can say something rude about the other person and the other person will know that you're just joking and not take it seriously. Now, how far to take this is often a grey area. So probably the person who's receiving this card is a close friend and it's just like a put down saying, you've got no friends. You know, maybe the person has friends or they don't or whatever, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of just like a friendly dig, like, well, at least you got me, I'm your only friend. And the person giving the card should know that the other person isn't going to be offended by this card. It should be like that, but of course it's not always easy to know, and maybe friends do accidentally offend each other sometimes. So whether it's a good or a bad way of relating to each other is a different question. I'm just trying to explain what the jokes mean. And here's the fifth one. Don't get excited. There's no cash inside. Again, it's like a put down. Usually the social etiquette is we might want to put a bit of money in a card to express our gratitude for our friendship or something nice. But this person's saying, nope, I'm not doing that. I'm not giving you any cash. And so going against that social norm seems kind of funny. By the way, it's not usually expected that you put money in cards, but you can do, especially if it's someone's wedding, for example. Here's the sixth one. I was looking for a sentiment that properly captured the true majesty of someone as distinguished as you. Luckily, I finally came across this card that just said total knobhead, and with that I knew my search was over. Okay, so again, we might expect that you would say something lovely and kind to your friend on their birthday, but this one just says total knobhead. That means like total idiot. So by going against that social construct and by kind of putting your friend down, it shows A, humour, and B, a close relationship. Interestingly, when you go to British weddings, you'll definitely expect to hear these kind of jokes in the best man's speech. That's the best friend of the groom. People always look forward to those speeches because they tend to be full of this kind of banter and funny, sort of putting the groom down type jokes. It's become such an expectation that if the best man gives a speech that doesn't use this kind of humour, people will be disappointed. So that's kind of an important aspect of British weddings these days. Here's the seventh card. I'm younger than you. So you might know that an aspect of social etiquette in the UK is to never ever boast, never say, look at me, look how well I'm doing, because it's just not something that people do. But in this card, they're saying, ha ha ha, I'm young, you're old, which is just totally the opposite of what we normally do in British culture, and that's why it's funny. Here's the eighth one. Are you starting to get the idea now? This one says, happy birthday, bellend. Bellend is a rude word for idiot, so again, putting down your friend. This is what we call banter. And the ninth, you're a pain in the arse, but I do love you. Okay, so that's kind of cute. At least they tacked on the I love you at the end there. Here's the 10th card. You make life a lot less So this one's interesting because it's actually being nice to your friend, but the phrasing is just so direct and blunt, kind of silly, that it sounds funny. Instead of saying, you mean the world to me, you're one of my dearest friends, thank you for all your support, and blah, 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 it's just saying, without you, my life would be more And of course, the swear word also adds that element of surprise and humour. Here's the 11th card. Just got the gas bill. Long story short, this card is also your present. So this one's more of a joke about the cost of living. You might have seen in the news that the gas bills in the UK have been soaring recently, especially a few years ago. So this card is saying, 总的来说，我不能买礼物送给你. The card also counts as the present because this person is probably joking that they can't afford to buy this person a present. So here you go, it's just going to be the card, no present. So again, I guess it's kind of taboo to talk about your finances and to talk about whether you can afford to buy things. You know, if you can't afford to buy your friend a nice present, you would probably still try and buy something that's kind of nice and maybe hope that they don't notice that it's actually really cheap or something. You know, that would be the same in all cultures. You know, you just do your best to give a nice present. But in this situation, it's going against that social norm and saying, can't afford it, no present for you this year. Now that might sound tragic to you and almost like rude, like a loss of face, but it comes across to the Brits as honest, unpretentious, and funny. The 12th card. Happy birthday, it's time to start lying about your age. Again, probably this person is becoming old. As you can see, there's lots of jokes about becoming old and, you know, most people don't want to get old, so it's just poking fun and saying, ha, you're old now. You know, this isn't really a mean joke because we're all in this boat together. Like, we're all going to get old and die. So it's sort of pointing out that tragedy is a kind of humorous thing. Yeah, so pointing out that reality and not hiding from it is seen as a very refreshing thing. And people do like these kind of jokes. What we don't like to do is to pretend and say, oh no, you're so young, you still look like when you were 20, and these kinds of things. Sometimes saying those sorts of things can actually come across as a bit fake and forced. Obviously, if you really mean it, then that's great, you can say those things. But if you're just trying to find a way to be polite and make the other person feel better, it can almost add a bit of a rift, a bit of a barrier between you. Whereas if you're close enough to just say like, ha, you're old now, then probably everyone's fine. Having said that, we still would never actually say that your friend really looks old if they do, right? That's still a taboo. The 13th card. I'm forever buying bloody birthday cards. Here's yours. So it's joking about that feeling of, oh, another birthday, another wedding, here's another card I've got to buy. Maybe some people don't like the social etiquette, the social construct of giving a card every time something happens. So they're pointing it out and making a joke and saying, this is stupid, I'm just going to give you this card anyway. Joking about how rubbish things are or complaining is a very British thing to do, and it can come across as funny. I won't say that British complaining is always funny, but often it can be turned into a joke. Number 14. You have been alive for several years. Now this one actually sounds more absurd and ridiculous compared to the others. It is simple and blunt, but the phrasing of it sounds strangely a bit poetic while at the same time being incredibly simple. Like the word several is not usually used in speaking that much. It's more of a written word. So it sounds like it should be something beautiful and poetic, but what it's actually just saying is you have lived a long time. It's like a cool story. Number 15. This card is late because it was towards the bottom of my to-do list. So again, pointing out the embarrassment of giving a card late and the reality of having such a long to-do list. Number 16. You have reached an arbitrarily defined milestone. Again, this sounds quite advanced. It sounds quite ooh la la with the language. Arbitrarily, what does that mean? Arbitrarily means for no particular reason. Just to give an example, let's say today I end up sharing 23 cards with you. You might say, why 23? And I'll say, oh, no reason, it's completely arbitrary. So arbitrary just means for no reason, just completely random. So in this card, an arbitrarily defined milestone, it's like you've reached an achievement of getting older and having a birthday, but actually it's kind of meaningless. There's no real reason that we have to celebrate you on this day, apart from that on this particular date you were born. You haven't actually achieved anything more by living an extra year, but we still celebrate it anyway. So it's about pointing out an absurd truth of life. Number 17. Mum, don't worry, I won't put you in a home this year. Now this one's a bit morbid, again pointing out the harsh reality of life, which is that in England, most people usually send their parents when they get too old to be looked after into an elderly nursing home. And you know, no one wants to go to a nursing home. They sound like very depressing places where it's just, you know, all the old people together being looked after by nurses and so on. So this person's making a joke and saying to their mum, don't worry, I won't do that yet. But yeah, it's just a joke because they have this close relationship, so they can talk about these kinds of things which are not ideal. Actually, the person giving this card probably really loves their mum. Pointing out something mundane and boring and even not very nice is like a British way of showing closeness. I know it's kind of weird. Number 18. Mum, I will always be your financial burden. Again, pointing out the truth of I rely on you, mum, for money, making it seem like maybe that's all I care about. I just want you for your money. But of course, it's not really that. That person really does appreciate their mum, but they're just making a joke that they're a financial burden. Number 19. Mum, well done. I'm amazing. Oh, and happy Mother's Day. The joke here being, again, remember, we should not boast in British culture, but this is going against that social norm and saying, wow, you birthed me, what an amazing child I am. Totally absurd, totally ridiculous, because people do not usually boast in British culture. Number 20, well done, you were right about everything. So the joke here is maybe in the family dynamic, the mum or the dad or whoever is always saying, you should do blah blah blah, or I know best, you need to do this. Maybe there's been a bit of bickering, a bit of disagreements there. And then this card is saying, I finally admit you were right about everything. Again, seems silly, seems absurd, and that's why it's funny. Are you enjoying this video? Do you like the way I speak? Would you like to speak with a lovely quintessential British accent? Then you might like to know that I'm launching a brand new pronunciation course very soon. The course will be delivered all in Mandarin, so it's perfect for you even if your listening skills aren't quite there yet. We'll take you step by step through every sound in the British accent, as well as connected speech, fluency and intonation. So by the end of the course, you'll be sounding so much more British. If that sounds interesting to you, then just use the link below to sign up for the waitlist, and then you'll definitely be the first to hear about when we drop this course. Number 21. They say, like mother, like daughter. Oh, the joke being, there's a positive phrase which is when a daughter does something, oh, it's just like her mother, and it's a cute, positive thing. But this is saying, oh no, if I become like my mum, that's not a good thing. And this card will be given to the mum, and it's just banter. It's like digging your mum, kind of insulting them, but it's a bit of banter, and it shows closeness. Number 22. Mum, thanks for feeding me so I don't die. Usual social norm, be very grateful and loving towards your mum on Mother's Day. British humour, point out something boring, obvious, and even tragic to cause a feeling of surprise and humour. Number 23. Happy Mother's Day. Thanks for always wiping my bum. Just for the record, I won't be returning the favour. Absurdity number 1, thanking your mum for wiping your bum when you were a baby. Absurdity number 2, pointing out that when your mum gets older, you don't want to be the one wiping her bum. This is of course a tragic and sad reality, but by pointing it out, it sounds shocking. It goes against our normal polite topics of conversation, and so it sounds funny. Number 24, you just relax today, mum, until tea needs doing. The typical social norm is to let your mum relax and have a lovely day on Mother's Day. This one is joking to say, yeah, you can do that, but make sure you make us dinner. Number 25. I'm amazed that you can still read this at your age. This card looks like a reading test that you'll see at the opticians. Again, it's making a joke about getting older and poking fun about how old the other person is. Number 26. You're so old that if you were milk, I'd have to give you a sniff first. This one is quite funny. I like this one. Of course, we all know that milk goes off pretty quickly after like 1 or 2 days out of the fridge. So it's comparing this person who's getting older to some milk that's going off. And so it just seems completely absurd. Number 27. It's your birthday. I can barely contain my excitement. 我忍不住地表现出我多么的开心. I can't hold in my feelings of excitement. And then of course we have a picture of a cat looking incredibly bored. So the humour is that usually we should actually be excited for our friend's birthday. But in this situation, they're joking that they couldn't be more bored. Number 28. You've reached the age where your bin goes out more than you do. You might have noticed that in the UK, elderly people tend to stay at home a lot. So comparing them to something awful like a bin is of course not very nice. It's giving a bit of a dig. It's making fun of the other person. And we need to take the bin out like, what, once a week? So making that comparison similar to the milk thing, it just sounds ridiculous and kind of mean and quite funny. If you're friends, of course. And probably the person receiving this card isn't actually that old that they're really struggling. You know, they're probably just like a normal 60-year-old. I've just got 2 more for you. Make sure to give this video a like if you're enjoying it. Somewhere right now, someone is thinking about how fantastic you are. It's not me. I think you're a knob. Knob is British slang for idiot. So again, it starts poetic, it starts beautiful, like the usual expected social norm. And then it says, that's not me though, I think you're an idiot. You can see the theme, right? And the last one, how to find out you're old. Fall down. If people laugh, you're young. If people panic, you're old. So of course this is actually true. If someone falls down in public and you laugh, they probably are young. And if you start thinking, oh God, are they okay? Then probably they are quite old. So it's pointing out that tragic reality and using it to make fun of the other person, trying to make light-hearted fun of something as awful as aging. Do you think this is funny, or are we just mean? You know, the jokes are not really supposed to be mean, they're just supposed to be absurd. They're supposed to go against the taboo of talking about age. So maybe it is because we have such a sort of social norm-driven society that we find release in these kinds of jokes that just say it like it is. So anyway, if you enjoyed today's video, please let me know which jokes you actually understood down below. Give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye!